most creative scores in the W.
Starting to go on a rampage here. They've cut it to 5.
And with the first overall selection in the 2023 NHL Draft, the Chicago Blackhawks are very proud to select from the Regina Pats, the Western Hockey League, Connor Bedard.
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you're listening to Mike on the Mic, and everything Chicago sports-related podcast. It is currently October 9th, 2023. We got some MLB baseball to talk about today as we get the live going, as we get everybody coming in here. I'm really excited to just talk about Cubs baseball, even though the playoffs are here and the Cubs are the furthest thing from being a part of that. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun seeing all these different teams kind of scouting and seeing who's going to be a free agent, who's not, who's big time in the playoffs, who's showing out, and who can help this team moving forward. Tonight, we're going to be talking about wants and needs of the 2024 season. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be something to where, you know, we can have an honest conversation about what this team specifically needs and what they need to do to be the best versions of themselves. Now, I think there are several different things that this team can do. And I think there's a lot of different directions that they could go. One for me that I think, you know, when you really look at this Jed Hoyer, Carter Hawkins led team, they really bank on the roster that they're setting. You know, I believe there is a disconnect between them and the managing and obviously the guy who's creating the lineups, the guy who's putting the roster together, them and David Ross, I think is the first conversation I want to have tonight, is kind of the first real sense of urgency. I think you need to come up with a game plan. I love David Ross as a player, and I love David Ross as a person, and the culture that he's creating, I do believe is a winning culture, but some of the decisions I feel like are kind of outdated. Whether that's analytically or whether that's just trusting veterans over younger guys. I think it's kind of irresponsible at times, you know, to not have certain guys in the lineup. You know, we talked about it all season long. We've had this conversation about how we need to see change and the changes that we need to see moving forward. And I think it's really going to come down to what we need from David Ross in 2024 to really get things going. Now, one of the bigger things I think we need to see from David Ross in 2024 is really just having that conversation about, listen, man, the reality of the situation is you're playing older guys. You're playing guys that you really need to have on your bench as leaders. You don't want these guys in your everyday lineup. You don't want these guys to be a part of anything more than just team building. And I think that's really the problem with David Ross right now. And I really don't know how to break that to you, or how to break that to him more so, and how to have that conversation. If I'm Jed Hoyer, you know, you don't want to force his hand and him play guys he doesn't want to play. But if you're not willing to give your best players an opportunity to succeed and develop, then I can't really see him being the manager of this team long term. That's just me personally. I think he's great at what he does. I think he's great at team building. But one of the things that frustrates me the most, and I have the splits right here, the slash rate for Christopher Morel in 388 at-bats, not due to injury, just due to not playing. In 107 games. Out of 162 games, Christopher Morel only played in 107 of them. Last year he played, well, not last year, but 2 years ago he played in 113. So he's played even less with more time. He had a 247, 313, 508 slash rate, 26 home runs, tied with Cody Bellinger for the lead for the Chicago Cubs and home runs this year. Cody Bellinger played way more games than him, and he still has just as many, and 70 RBIs. This is a guy that I look at, and when I see somebody like Christopher Morel and I see he's only playing 107 games a year, he has 26 home runs in 107 games. Imagine if he plays 130. Imagine if he plays 140. Imagine if he played the entire season instead of sitting in AAA Iowa in the beginning of the year. So that's one of my issues with David Ross is you have one of the more dynamic players on this team on your bench. And yes, I understand the batting average and the strikeouts are a big part of Morel's game right now. That's something that will come in time if you give him the opportunity to fix it. You have Patrick Wisdom batting almost under 200 in the lineup consistently. You have Nick Madrigal in this lineup consistently. You have all these different guys coming in and out, and it's like Christopher Morel has paid his dues to be a part of this roster. He has shown you in every opportunity that he shows up in big-time moments, and to just have him hit a grand slam and hit a walk-off home run against the White Sox and then just not play him for 4 days. It is absolutely crazy. It is absolutely crazy, and it is irresponsible as a manager. So something I do want to see moving forward. We also talked about guys like Kevin Alcantara coming up sometime soon. You know, Alexander Canario, Pete Crow Armstrong, giving those guys more opportunities. Matt Mervis, who was fighting with Eric Hosmer and Trey Mancini just to play more than 20 games, and they didn't even give him that opportunity. So that's something moving forward. I really do want to see that change, but we're talking about wants and needs tonight. Wants and needs are going to be very important, and there's a very key difference between them. A want is Shohei Ohtani. A want is Mike Trout. A want is Bryce Harper. Those are things we want. What is something this team desperately needs right now? The front runner for that is Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger is not a want. Cody Bellinger is a need. I've said it time and time again. You can have the greatest pipeline in the world. You can sign all the free agents you want. You need a leader of the franchise. You need a face of the franchise. And nobody else on this roster, in my opinion, not Dansby Swanson, not Yan Gomes, not Pete Crow Armstrong, none of the guys we currently have are the face of the franchise the way Cody Bellinger can be. We've seen him win championships. We've seen him be the face of the Dodgers. We've seen him win an MVP, Gold Gloves, Silver Sluggers, batting titles, all types of stuff. We've seen him handle that before at the biggest stage in one of the biggest markets in one of the biggest cities in baseball. Cody Bellinger handled that this year with a slash rate of 307, 356, and 525 with 26 home runs, tied with Morel for the most home runs in the league, and then 97 RBIs. 97 RBIs on a team that had a hard time getting on base at times during the season. This is something for me. Cody Bellinger is not in the conversation of somebody that can leave in free agency. Cody Bellinger needs to be a part of this team in 2024 and beyond. If Cody Bellinger isn't a part of this team, I don't know what we're talking about. If you want to make the argument, say Ian Happ needs to go, say Suzuki, whoever, I'm willing to have that conversation. Cody Bellinger is the most important player on this entire roster. We are not in the position that we are in today without Cody Bellinger. The greatest free agency signing last year in free agency was Cody Bellinger at $17.5 million, had an MVP caliber season, even after missing a month with a knee injury he suffered in Houston, and still had an absolute year. He misses a month and still has 26 home runs and 97 RBIs. Gold Glove defense in center field, Gold Glove defense at first base. That are two positions that we desperately need right now, and those are two positions that I see him playing at an elite level every single night. I'm excited about what the future brings for Cody Bellinger. I think there's a lot of promise into what him, Dansby Swanson, and others can do. I mean, let's talk about the leaders that we have on this team. You know, you can bring up Kevin Alcantara, you can bring up James Triantos, you can bring up Miguel Amaya, Pete Crow Armstrong, Alexander Canario, and all these guys. That's great. But who's going to help develop them into winners? You have champions on this team. Yan Gomes, Dansby Swanson, Cody Bellinger, the list goes on. You have guys who have won many things, many titles, many accolades, many awards, and that's exactly how you're going to build a winning culture. One of the biggest flaws of a team like the Cincinnati Reds, great young roster, Ellie De La Cruz and everybody else that's a part of that, amazing. But their veteran is Joey Votto, who's never won anything. You got to bring in guys who know how to win. And that's exactly what I believe this team is going to be able to do this offseason. A couple guys that I want to see them bring in. This is more so a want than it is anything else. I think at the end of the day, there are a couple guys going into free agency that I have my eye on. Now, for this season as a whole, this is just to make free agency make a little more sense. The leader of hits on this team was Nico Horner with 175 hits. Bellinger and Morel obviously tied for home runs at 26. And then Justin Steele had the most strikeouts at 176 strikeouts. So you look at that and you say, okay, how can we get better? 176 strikeouts that in a season. Justin Steele had a Cy Young caliber season, but strikeouts really isn't his game. You know what I mean? He's a very different type of pitcher, and I love how he pitches. And I'm not taking anything away from him, but we need some gas. We need some gas in this rotation. We need to bring somebody in here that's going to be able to get some Ks in big timing, big crucial situations as a starter. No more of this bridge gap shit with Javier Assad and everybody else, Drew Smiley. No more. We need a starter, a legitimate starter. Jamison Tyone, they bring him in, take a chance on him. He's kind of dookie in the first half of the season, and then he really lit it up in the second half, and I loved what we saw from him, but we need something a little bit better. I love Cade Horton. I love Ben Brown. I love Jordan Wicks. I love what the future holds for them. Kyle Hendricks still could potentially be a part of this team moving forward. I know Tom Ricketts said they'd love to have him back. Don't know. I didn't hear that from Jed, so I don't know how Jed feels about it. But it's going to be interesting to see how we handle this rotation. Free agency is going to be huge for that. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani will not be a part of the 2024 rotation of any team because he had Tommy John surgery. But I do think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that. But some position that I do think we need to address right here, right now, is the third baseman position. Listen, I love BJ Murray. I love James Triantos. Right now, they're in the pipeline and they are doing amazing things. They are doing amazing things. Right now, James Triantos and Kevin Alcantara are in the Arizona Fall League, and they are absolutely raking. They just won a championship with the South Bend Cubs. They're doing their thing, and I'm excited about it, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I will say this. We need something right here, right now. As those guys continue to develop, we need a bridge gap. We need a gap where not only is he going to produce right now, but he could produce in the near future. We can put BJ or James somewhere else. And by that, I mean position-wise, not a different franchise. But we can stick them wherever. We need something right here, right now. Batting 240, gold glove defense being wasted in Toronto right now is Matt Chapman. Matt Chapman is absolutely phenomenal. 17 home runs on the year, 54 RBIs. That's a down year for him, but an absolutely amazing performer. Him and Matt Olson spent the majority of their career in Oakland, and both of them have been showing out since they left. Obviously, Toronto just, I mean, it's crazy when I look at the Toronto Blue Jays who just got eliminated from the playoffs because I thought so highly of them. Bo Bichette, Vladdy Jr., obviously you bring in George Springer, Matt Chapman. You bring in all these different faces. Kirk is an amazing catcher, but they just can't win ball games. I feel like the Orioles are in a better position right now, and their rebuild took longer. I just feel like the Toronto experiment just isn't working out. And I don't know if they need to blow it up or what they need to do, but it's just not working out. So having him as an unrestricted free agent, the market for him right now is about $17.5 million per year, kind of around what Cody Bellinger got last year. I think he can probably get a little more. I think he can sniff towards 20. I think teams are going to bite 100%. This year he's making around $12 million. He's going to shoot the crap out of that one. But man, this is a guy who plays platinum level defense. I think he's second only to a guy like Nolan Arenado. Manny Machado, guys like that. I mean, Matt Chapman is an absolutely phenomenal ball player, an absolutely amazing hot corner defender. He's somebody that I want to see on the Chicago Cubs roster. This isn't a want, this is a need. We need to address third base. We can, respectfully, I love my Garden Gnome. I love Nicky Two Strikes. I love what he does. Nick Madrigal has more home runs this year than Tim Anderson, and he did not get knocked out just as many times. So with that, it's great to see him do what he does, but we need a long-term fit. We need a platinum-type player. Patrick Wisdom, respectfully, is just not rosterable anymore. You have that conversation about striking out over 35, 40% of the time. You're batting 200. The home runs are cool here and there, but I mean, I just can't. I can't put up with it anymore. You know what I mean? So Matt Chapman coming into there, hitting bombs, hitting guys in the position, scoring guys, and really just driving in runs and being the best version possible of a third baseman that we would want to see. I think he flourishes in a Chicago Cubs uniform at Wrigley Field. So Matt Chapman is my biggest offseason addition outside of Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger, Matt Chapman, bring in some pitching. I really think this team can really get rocking and rolling. And I'm still a big believer in guys like Kevin Alcantara, Pete Crow Armstrong, Matt Mervis. I still think they have a place on this team. Obviously, Alexander Canario, and so many others we can talk about. Cade Horton's on the rise, Ben Brown. We can do this all day. But I think at the end of the day, the conversation we're going to start having is, when are those guys going to come up and be productive, and how can we win games while we wait for them? We need to bring in guys to win now. We have the money for it. I would rather sign Cody Bellinger, Matt Chapman, and a starting pitcher than pay Shohei Ohtani $500 million. At the age of, 33? That's just honestly how I feel about it. I really would. I mean, if the Cubs are going to go out there and they're going to spend this offseason, I think it needs to be in a positive way. I don't need one great player. I need 3 good ones. It's not a money ball approach, but it's something similar to it, to where it's sometimes quantity is good quality. I mean, you don't have to go after bad players. You know what I mean? You can go after the good ones. Please don't sign another Eric Hosmer. Please don't sign another Trey Mancini, but go out on a limb. Take a chance. Let's go after some guys that are big names. We showed that we can make the playoffs, and that's going to make guys want to come play here. They're one of the best up-the-middle defenses between Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson, and Cody Bellinger. I've heard the rumors about Pete Alonso potentially getting traded. I want to shut all of that down. Because, first of all, Pete Alonso on the year, 217 batting average, 46 home runs, and 118 RBIs. Love the home runs. 217 batting average. Patrick Wisdom does that. I don't need that. I need guys who are going to get on base. That is one of our biggest needs. We also need a deep ball threat. That is obviously going to be Pete Alonso. But the proposals that I'm seeing, I saw one that was Kevin Alcantara and Justin Steele. I saw another that was Cade Horton and Justin Steele. And I'm seeing all these trade proposals, and I think they're all awful. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be completely real. Right now, this Chicago Cubs team, I would trade Pete Crow Armstrong back to the Mets before I traded away Justin Steele. That's just my personal opinion, but it's what it is. And it's no shot against Pete. It's just we are so thin at the starting rotation already, and we're going to give up our ace who just had a Cy Young caliber season for Pete Alonso batting 217. Can't even get the Mets into the playoffs. I'm good, bro. I'm good on that. I don't need that in my life. But yeah, I would definitely love if we could potentially get a guy like Pete Alonso. In a trade like that, I would say here's where I would be at. In a trade for Pete Alonso, I think the Chicago Cubs would be wise to trade prospects that are good but could miss certain time just because of how deep our farm system is. I think Matt Mervis, who obviously is their placeholder at first base, batting over 300 in 2023 in AAA Iowa, had his MLB debut, didn't look awful. Just needs some time. I think he just needs to be seasoned and taken more seriously. I think we did him a disservice by not allowing him more time in the majors the way we gave, Miguel Amaya and others more opportunity. But I would like to see Matt Mervis, maybe a player like Ben Brown. I'm not willing to give up Jordan Wicks or Cade Horton, but if you want another pitcher, a guy like Ben Brown, 100%, I could definitely understand that and entertain that conversation. Even though I love Ben Brown, I'm so high on Ben Brown. But when you're talking about a home run derby champion caliber type player who's going to knock over 50 home runs a year, you have to give up something to get something, So yeah, that's really where I'm at. I'm not willing to give up our real big top hitters, just because you never know. You never know what's going to happen. But there's a lot of different ways this can go. There's a lot of different ways the season can turn out. I really think right now that Matt Chapman is one of my biggest names that I want to see in a Chicago Cubs uniform going into 2024. He's somebody that, in my opinion, is probably one of the bigger names in free agency. And I think because he's stuck in Toronto, because he comes from Oakland, that gets overlooked a lot. But it reminds me a lot of Nolan Arenado being stuck in Colorado. You know what I mean? And now not even being looked at because of how bad St. Louis was this year. You have those conversations and say they still have Nolan Arenado, and he's still a great player. Manny Machado had a phenomenal season. Padres missed the playoffs. Nobody's talking about it. There are guys who had phenomenal seasons that you just don't hear about because they're not big-time news. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to take a lot to get a lot via trade. So I would rather just go out and spend money in free agency and bank on these guys in the minor leagues. So I'm excited about it nonetheless, though. But that's all I got for you guys tonight. Obviously, we're going to be talking about this a lot more as the season continues. Tonight was kind of just one of those conversations where we sit up here and we say, this is kind of what we're expecting. This is kind of what we're looking forward to as we wait for the MLB 2023 season to conclude. Right now, I got Orioles versus ATL, and unfortunately, the Orioles aren't looking too hot. Brandon Hyde is the bench coach of the 2016 Cubs, World Series champion, managing this Orioles team right now. And they look like they're blowing it right now, and it's really unfortunate. But hopefully they pull it around. Hopefully they turn it around. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But until then,
Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making a place. We talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.